Half-Life Alyx is a true AAA VR game, and after going back into it to play a new excellent custom campaign called Post-Human, it reminded me just how far ahead this game is compared to other VR games in terms of graphics, polish, and gameplay mechanics. Here are some of the incredible details that really set this game apart. First, you've got the hand interaction. If you see something you think you can pick up or move, you can. The hands have posers, so your hands don't clip through things, and many objects have multiple ways of picking them up and holding them, so you don't have them snap into a preset position. It's also got some of the best physics in any game in or out of VR. Everything feels perfect. You open a door or cupboard, and the way the door swings and the amount of force it takes to move it, how much perceivable weight it has when it's moving and coming to a stop, really adds to the immersion, and it allows you to get lost in the game. Heavier objects lank down and appear heavier. With this chair, it feels heavier if you hold it at the end compared to the middle of the chair. And some things like barrels require two hands to move around, otherwise you simply drop them as soon as you try to lift them off the ground. The game uses full collisions, so you can use props like this broom to press the elevator switch. Visually, the game is massively impressive. It looks great out of the headset and looks like a AAA non-VR game, but when you see it in the headset it's mind-blowing. The attention to detail on every object, which needs to stand up to close inspection, and somehow the game runs great even on lower spec hardware. Things like this food packet look clear and crisp, and you can read all the details. They've even got a newspaper in the game which is fully eligible, with information about what happened after the Combine took over. The lighting in this game is fantastic. They use baked lighting a lot, which helps with performance, so the shadows are static, but they do have some dynamic shadows on movable objects, and there are sections with a flashlight which use dynamic shadows. The flashlight is attached to your hand. They originally wanted to go with holding the flashlight in your hand, but they had problems with playtesters dropping the flashlight and leaving it behind. They also have the flashlight automatically come on and off when needed. This was for performance reasons, so they know exactly when the flashlight will be on, when dynamic shadows will be used, and then they can build out the levels so they know how to optimize those sections of the game to accommodate for the extra performance load. They also added a ball joint to the flashlight. This was because they found that people would two-hand a weapon, and then they'd have to twist their hand unnaturally to get it to point forwards. So now the light will point forward no matter if you're two-handing a gun or not. Another thing you may not have realised is that they have no shadows for your own hands and head. The shadows were disabled because if you saw them cast in front of you, it would break immersion seeing shadows of floating hands. They also disable shadows of held objects. You don't really notice this because you use the gravity gloves to pull objects from a distance, so as the object's flying through the air, the shadow gets disabled. If you pick up an object that has a clear visible shadow, notice how the shadow will disappear. The attention to detail in this game is insane, with loads of little details like right at the beginning of the game, there's a cat sleeping on a chair over the balcony, and you can throw something at it and it will run off. This same cat appears on a missing poster in the laundrette and can be seen walking on a roof a little later on. If you throw a paint tin off a roof, paint will splash on the floor and walls where it hits. There's also a snark from Half-Life 1 in a jar in your hideout. If you tap on the glass, it will jump at the glass, and you can also feed it by sprinkling whatever's in these containers on the top. There's also a clipboard in this room with drawings showing early concepts of Dog as Alyx is building and upgrading him. If you mess with the aerial, it tunes into an adult only channel and gives Doris a stroke. Another thing you might not realise is with the injectable health syringes, you can actually inject them anywhere on your body, including your head. This was because they noticed playtesters would try injecting in other places other than their hands, so even though you only have floating hands in the game, they're still doing the math to map out where your real life body would be so that the injectables work. The game features breakable glass. You can walk up to a window, hit it anywhere and it smashes in the place that you hit it. You then get shards of glass that can be knocked out or even picked up. This is done through procedural generation, so when you hit a section of the window, it will register the hit and then generate smaller pieces of broken glass which can be broken down further. You can see this if you tap the edge of some broken glass, as it continues to generate smaller and smaller pieces, but when you hit or shoot the glass like a normal person, it's pretty seamless. Shoot the car windows and they crack and then shatter with large shards that you can pick up. The sound design is also the best I've ever seen, or should I say heard, in any video game. The spatial audio is incredible. Every object makes a realistic noise and sounds like it's coming exactly where you expect it to be in the game world. They added sounds to everything. Pick up a matchbox and give it a shake around your head and it sounds like matches rattling around inside. Spray cans will rattle. A suitcase sounds like it has got stuff inside it. And they even added sounds for your clothes rubbing together as you move around. Move your arms, turn your body, and you can hear rustling sounds. Another incredible detail is when you're in the lab with Russell and he's typing, you can actually hear the clicks on the keyboard as he's pressing them with the animation. They actually tied these sounds to this typing animation, so whenever he presses the keys on the keyboard, it automatically presses random key press sounds, and you can even mess with him and he reacts. When you get the gun, if you fire it into the window where he throws it from, he complains,
"Hey, that's my window, watch it!"
And if you run out of ammo, he will keep throwing you another magazine to use. You can also see in the lab a TV, which has got a live feed of the camera that's built into your headset. There's a head crab in the fridge that's been shrink wrapped, and the gravity gloves machine is actually 2 microwaves on the side. You have the shaders in the bottles, which move around and ripple realistically, and if you shake the bottle, depending on the type of liquid, it will froth up at the top. There are so many other smaller details, like a fully functioning piano. Not only can you wear a hard hat, but you can also wear a bucket and even a traffic cone. These also save you from getting pulled up from barnacles, as it will pull the hat off your head. You can catch a head crab mid-air. This is especially useful for the armoured ones that need shooting from underneath, but you still need to be careful and hold your arms out as they can thrash their little legs and attack you. You can use things like a chair as a shield to knock them out of the air when they jump at you. The weapon interaction is also top notch, with contextual hand poses, as well as multiple ways to grab the slide of the pistol, and with the shotgun, you can flip it up or grab it from the top and the bottom to close it. The combine animations were done using motion capture, but also use some procedural elements. They wanted the combine to move realistically, changing direction and being able to face the player when moving, but they didn't want the combine to ever slide their feet. As the combine move, after each step the game then calculates the next foot position for the designated path, and it blends it with the animation seamlessly. I can't think of any other game that have got character animations that is totally dynamic and not pre-scripted that looks this smooth and realistic. The last couple of things I'm going to go into detail about are very specific parts of the game which will contain spoilers, so if you haven't played the game yet and you don't want to spoil anything, I recommend stop watching the video now. First, we need to talk about Jeff. This is a really creative level where you've got to deal with an invincible enemy that's blind. Jeff was created because they did early play tests just with Half-Life 2 models in a virtual environment, and they noticed just how much people would enjoy just getting close to the models, noticing details that they never saw before when playing flat, and other benefits of VR like getting a great sense of scale with each character model. They knew that they wanted to create some sort of unique encounter that would allow the player to get close to an enemy, so they made it blind, so it would make sense that you could get so close to it without it attacking you. They tried lots of different concepts, including trying out a robot that would walk around, but eventually they created Jeff, a mutated human from Zen spores. Valve are well known to playtest their games more than any other developer, even in the early concept stages, and they found when they introduced the line puzzle into the mix, whilst having to deal with Jeff, it was too stressful, so they decided to remove him by having the player lock him in a storage room. They then had the problem of having Jeff free again for the rest of the level, and they originally tried just having him burst out of the door when you finished the toner puzzle, but they found it was just too convenient for him to escape just as you finished it, so they decided to have the player free him by making the toner puzzle go into the room he was locked in. It's a brilliant moment in the game when you realise that you've got to set him free, and it was all created through extensive playtesting and feedback. Also, having the spores make you cough and having to physically cover your mouth with your hand in real life is a genius use of VR. The Strider encounter near the end took 3 years to make. They initially was going to have the Strider as a friendly that you set free, but they found it too difficult to convey this to the player in a reliable way, so they ended up going with a more traditional enemy route. This was one of the most difficult parts of the game to get right, and they iterated on it all the way through development, adding things quite late on, like the destructible environment, and they added different sounds to convey the state of the Strider, like when it's hunting you, when it's chasing you, and when it's about to start firing. While taking playtesters' feedback can have some negative impact, especially for non-new VR players, like the Antlines for example, were originally more like Half-Life 2, where they would just rush and attack the player, but they found that the player would get overwhelmed in VR, so they made them do a backflip before attacking. The headcrabs also give lots of warning before jumping to attack, but it is possible with a mod called Mercenaries to remove these tells, making the game more challenging. But Half-Life Alyx is very easy by default by design, as they knew lots of new VR players would play this game. Valve's focus on playtesters does ultimately shine through here, with so much detail, polish and even standout sections like Jeff, which wouldn't have been in the game without this feedback. And this is why Half-Life Alyx is still my favourite VR game and one of my favourite non-VR games ever made. And don't forget, if you have finished the main game, there are so many great mods and levels which can give you hours upon hours of extra playtime that will push the player more and be more challenging than the main campaign. Check out my other video, which I'll link in the description for more information on those. But that's the end of this video. Thank you for those who made it this far, and as always, an extra special thanks to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members.